home, whereas the Japanese name is Moyorimura, which is a pun that translates to neighbouring village. So when the bridge in Breath of the Wild, Moyoribashi, was translated to English, it lost the reference it had to Spirit Tracks. However, it regained its original play on words as proxim, derived from proximity, has a similar meaning to neighbouring. As for the last location of the area, Lantern Lake, it is most likely a reference to traditional Japanese paper lanterns, as it would fit with the aesthetic of Kakariko Village in this game, where the lake is found. In the Neclude region, we see a second reference to Maple, the character, and the tree in Maple Point, just like Maple Ridge. We also see Pierre Plateau, with Pierre being the scarecrow from Ocarina of Time that I mentioned earlier. Next up is Nadra Snowfield, which is named after the dragon Nadra, first seen atop Mount Lanayru, just to the east of this location. We also see the continued theme of tree and plant-based names. There's Camphor Pond, named after camphor trees, Emon Mountain, named after ebony trees, Fir River, named after fir trees, Lake Jura, named after Jura trees, and Cliffs of Quince, named after quince trees. Zelkoa Pond and Madorna Mountain are both named after two tree genera, being Zelkova and Madrona. Now for plants, we have Ovely Plains, named after olives, Lake Sumac, named after the sumac shrubs, and Walnut Mountain, named after walnuts. Moving on from plants, there's Furley Plateau and Furley Pond, both of which are named after fireflies, and also Marblewood Plain, which is named after the rock marble. Road Bread Drop-Off is named after bread, as the Japanese name, Buredo Kochi, means red highland. The three woods that surround Hateno are all named after different skill classes, Beginner Woods being beginner, Middle Woods being middle, and Red Sand being the word master backwards. Nirvana Lake and Nirvana Plateau are both named after the concept of nirvana from various religions, which is the state of enlightenment achieved after escaping the cycle of rebirth. Peak of Awakening, following the same concept, to symbolise waking up after living through many cycles of life, or it could just simply be referencing the game Link's Awakening. Trotter's Downfall is simply named after the Sound Forces Bay. Despite being descriptive, I should bring up that Kitano Bay means Northern Bay, as Kita means North in Japanese. I couldn't find any connection with Rabia Plain that would fit with the original Japanese name, but it could just be named after Rabio from A Link Between Worlds. And lastly is Tanoko Island, which means small island near Hateno, as the Japanese name is Hatanoko Shima, Hateno simply being the nearby village and Shima meaning island. The ko is a common suffix in Japanese meaning small, so Tanoko is simply derived from Hatanoko.
You can only do 10 times.
The Elden region sees a lot of locations named after Gorons seen throughout the series. From Skyward Sword, we see Golo Lake, named after Golo, Gorko Lake and Tunnel, named after Gorko, and Gortram Cliff, named after Gortram. From Ocarina of Time, we see Darunia Lake, named after Darunia, the Sage of Fire, Goronbi Lake and River, named after Big Goron, and Medingo Pool, named after Medigoron. And from its sequel, Majora's Mask, is Darmani III, who has Lake Darman named after him, as well as Don Jero, who has Jero Pond named after him. He's not a Goron, but you receive a mask in his likeness from a Goron just outside the Goron village. Heading across the Death Caldera is the Bridge of Eldin, a location first seen in Twilight Princess.
I may as well.
Darvis, also from Twilight Princess, has Dar Pond named after him. At the southern base of the mountain is Trilby Valley and Trilby Plain, both named after the Trilby Highlands from the Minish game. Next, the Gut Check Rock is simply named after the Goron's Gut Check Challenge seen in the game. Goro Code is named after the word Goro, a fictional word used by Gorons to append sentences. Looking deeper, the Japanese word Goro Goro is onomatopoeia for a heavy object roller, and this is also the original pun name of the gods as it fits well with their rolling components. Cephalon Lake is named after the animal class Cephalopod, and Isle of Rabat is named after crabs, the shape of the island resembles. In the Faron region, we see Bremen Peak, named after the Bremen Mask used to gather cuckoo chicks in Majora's Mask. Martha's Landing is named after Martha the Mermaid from Link's Awakening, as well as Martha's Bay, where she resides. Next, Stinger's Cliff is named after the Stinger enemy from Ocarina of Time, a stingray-like enemy that leaps out of the ground towards Link. Another king from the series is King Tuft, who is not the king of Hyrule, but Hytopia, the main setting from Triforce Heroes, who has Tuft Mountain named after him. we see a lot of references to the Floria sub-region seen in Skyward Sword. They are Floria Bridge, Floria Falls, Mount Floria, and Lake Floria. Eventide Island is named after the word eventide, meaning evening, and with the island being a huge reference to Link's Awakening, it also has Koholint Rock, named after the Koholint Island, the main setting of the game, as well as Toronto Beach, named after Toronto Shores. Due to a large part of the ocean being in this region, we see a lot of locations named after sea creatures. Toon Valley is an anagram of tuna, Kalora Lake is named after coral, Cape Kales is named after scales, Gogobi Shores is named after the goby fish, and Sergeant Bridge and Sergeant Woods are both named after the surgeon. The last few sea creature related names are a bit more complicated though. The mountain is named after the Himidai, the Japanese name of the lava jobfish. Tobio's Hollow is named after the Japanese name of the flying fish, being Tobio. Kodo Pond is named after the Japanese name of the Terrapon Jagua, which is the Kodo Peak. Lastly, Yoboda Point is named after the Japanese name of the moray eel, which is Utsubo. Moving on from sea creatures, both Palmeray Beach and Palmeray Ruins are named after palm trees. We have a few user-based names in Climb Coast being based on clarinets, Corn Beach being based on cornets, and River Beach being based on maroons. Continuing this theme, Temto Hill could be named after Tempo, and Riola Spring could be named after the Viola, but the Japanese names don't support either of these. Another interpretation is that Temto could be an anagram of Totem. Having this location being named after the Totem heroes and the main gimmick of the Triforce heroes would make sense, as the name is Top Mountain, the only other reference to the game. Angel Peak is simply named after the mythological creature of the same name. Courage Step is named after Link's piece of the Triforce of Courage. Yambi Lake is named after the Yamabiko, which is a mountain-dwelling yokai from Japanese folklore, which makes sense, as this location sits near the peak of Tuft Mountain. Cape Crezia could be named after the character Cremia from Majora's Mask, older sister of Romani. Both Mount Taran and Taran Pass could be named after the Tatari Desert from Adventure of Link. Gerudo Highlands shows up the common theme of gemstones being the basis behind some names due to the association Gerudo have with jewellery. So we have Gerudo Lookout named after Viridine, Himar's Descent named after Hematite, Laparo Mesa named after Oak, Needle of Mantle named after Emerald, Mount Agar named after Agar, These Shells named after Amethyst, Nephra Hill named after Nephrite, Sapphire's Table named after Sapphire, Taffy Hill named after Taphite, Torsa Snowfield named after Samorite, Zirco Mesa named after Zirco. Aside from these, we see the statue of the 8th heroine, named after the banished 8th member of the 7 heroines who was wiped from history and had their statue buried. Their story was later expanded upon in Tears of the Kingdom. Moving into the main Gerudo region, we see Kukot Plateau, which is a portmanteau of Kume and Kutake, the twin witches and surrogate mothers of Ganondorf, first seen in Operator of Time. Also from Operator of Time is the Boru, the Sage of Spirit, who has a mountain of the Boru named after them. The Yiga clan hideout should be self-explanatory, but either way, it's named after the Yiga clan, a group that worships the Calamity, and later on the Demon King in Tears of the Kingdom. Salary Plateau is derived from the word crystal. It is simply the syllables reversed, but with the letter C removed. The path leading to the South Wome Labyrinth is Champion's Gate, being named after the champion seen within this game. The Arbiter's Grounds is named after the dungeon of the same name, Twilight Princess, which has significance to that game's story. For Link's Awakening is the Yana Desert, the inspiration behind Yana Valley. Spectacle Rock is a recurring location which is seen throughout the series and is known to resemble a pair of glasses. It is first seen in Zelda 1 and houses the final dungeon in that game. Karakara Bazaar is named after the Japanese word karakara, meaning empty or dry, which are both common descriptors of desert environments. Dragon's Exile is named after the well-known creature, but it may also be towards what the nearby direct skeleton may have been. Two more gemstone-based names are Halu Wasteland, named after the Bell, and Taruma Dunes, named after Tourmaline. The last location, Mount Grenade, may be named after granite, but the Japanese name is based on Morganite, which is much more in line with the rest of the gemstone-based names.
Verity shines.
We see a lot of character references in the Great Hyrule Forest sub-region, most to do with the Koroks in it. Starting with the Korok most important to the story, Makar, the Earth Sage. He helps Link reawaken the power of the Master Sword. Both Lake Makar and Makar Island are named after him. As for the rest of the Koroks, we have Alder Foothills, named after Aldo, Drennan Highlands and Mount Drenna, both named after Drona, Elma Knolls, named after Elma, and Rowan Plain, named after Rowan. Moving on to Ocarina of Time references, we see Lake Saria, named after Saria, Sage of the Forest, and Mido Swamp, named after Mido. Both of these make sense as they are Pieri, forest-dwelling children who later evolved into the Korok seen in the Wind Waker. Another sage from Ocarina of Time would be the Sage of Light, Roru, who has Roru Hillside and Roru settlement rooms named after him. He is also the inspiration for the Zonai named Roru seen later on in Tears of the Kingdom. Both Minshu Woods and Pico Pond are named after the two different names of the creatures seen in the Minish Cap, those being Minish and Kokori. The Lost Woods are a recurring location seen as far back as Zelda 1, with the gimmick of being returned to where you began if you take the wrong turn. Lastly, for this area, Typhlo runes are named after the Greek word Typhlos, meaning blind, which fits the location as the home for Big Dark. Atop the Great Plateau, we see Mount Hylia, named after the goddess Hylia, first seen in Skyward Sword. The Temple of Time is another recurring location, first seen in Ocarina of Time. They usually has two main purposes in the series, those being to house the Master Sword or allowing them to travel in time.
There's only 4.
Next up is the Forest of Spirits. While not being a reference to anything in particular, it's named after spirits, which are a common theme throughout the series. And within the Forest of Spirits is Hopper Pond, named after the way frogs move, with the hot-footed frog being commonly found in the area. The River of the Dead is simply named this to emphasize the dangers of the river, most likely due to the freezing temperatures.
Never mind, I'm just blind.
In Japanese, it's named
There's
Yomi no
6.
Kawa, which translates to River of the Underworld, a title shared with the River Styx. In Hebra, we see Pondo's Lodge and Selmy's Spot, named after Pondo and Selmy, minor characters introduced in this game. Not seen in this game are Gothlam and Shurfin, both of which are completely unseen characters, with Gothlam's Secret Hot Spring and Shurfin's Secret Hot Spring being named after them, Gothlam's name being derived from flamingos, and Shurfin's name being derived from kingfishers. We see a lot more bird-related names. There's Byron Snowshot, named after Robin, Corvash Peak, named after Corvus, Lake Kelsey, named after Silkies, Ticket the Snowgrove, named after
you're looking for.
and Stonina Basin and Stonina Secret Hot Spring, named after the bird family Sturnina.
He's not
Not based on a bird species, but still related. We have Tama Pond, based on the Japanese word for egg, Tamago, and Talonta Peak may be named after the talons of the bird.
Great. I'll send the coordinates to your turn.
In the Ridgeland sub-region, we see a few more
Excellent
inspired names, just like the Great Chiral Forest. We have Urch Plain, named after Urch, Linda's Brow, and Upland Linden, both named after Linda, and both of these characters are from the Wind Waker. Mount Rome is named after King Rome Bosforama Tyrol, seen in the opening, as well as the memories of this game. Ceres Scablands is named after Ceres, one of the sages seen in the Link Between Worlds. Next, the Breach of Demise is named after Demise, the main villain of Skyward Sword. We also see the continued theme of rock or mineral-based names. Illimini Plateau and Lake Illimini are both named after Illuminite. Rutile Lake is named after Rutile. Sapphire Hill is named after Sulphur, and Saturn and Park Ruins are named after Saturnine. Another bird-themed name is the Tanagar Canyon, being based on Tanagars. Thundra Plateau is named after the abundant thunderstorms that occur within the area. And lastly, Satori Mountain is named after the Satori, the creature seen in this area, who is named after Nintendo's former CEO and president, Satoru Iwata. As mentioned earlier, Lake Hylia is named after the Hylian race from a release standpoint, but in lore it's most likely named after the goddess Hylia from Skyward Sword. On top of this, there's also the Bridge of Hylia and Hylia Island. In this area, you can find the horse god Melania, who has the horse god bridge, Lake of the Horse God, and Melania Spring named after her. Another of the dragons, Feroche, is commonly seen in this area and has Feroche shields named after them. An interesting case is the Zonai Ruins, a location hinted towards a new race not seen up to this point, but later on revealed and somewhat expanded upon in Tears of the Kingdom. Also seen in this area is Dracozu Lake and Dracozu River, named after the shape of the lake and river combined, resembling a serpent-like dragon, also connecting with the Zonai structures using dragons in their designs. We also see some more tree and sea creature-based names, starting with the trees is Poplar Foothills, named after populous trees, and Taobab Grassland, named after baobab trees, which are seen in the area. Next, for the sea creatures, there's Cora Lake, named after coral, Parker Lake, named after sharksuckers, Heron Lake, named after herons, Nortel Wetlands, named after nautilus, and Puffer Beach, named after pufferfish. An interesting one is Como Shoreline, which is named after Komorebi, a Japanese word that doesn't have a direct English translation, but it roughly translates to the visuals of sunlight leaking through the leaves of the tree. Damel Forest is named after the word damsel, as Zelda is commonly referred to as damsel in distress. Puppetso Grove is named after puppets, possibly referencing the puppets the Skull Kid would summon within the second grove in Twilight Princess, as both of these areas are dense forests. Guccini Plain and Guccini Plain Barrows could be named after the Genie, a ghost-like enemy seen in the early 2D titles such as Zelda 1 and Link's Awakening, before the Probe became the main ghost-like enemy. Lastly, Lavera Beach may be named after the lead enemies, as they commonly appear in sandy environments like deserts, but more importantly, beaches such as the beaches seen in Zelda 1, Link's Awakening, and Majora's Mask.
We ain't got the time for that.
You shouldn't be stealing public property. There's still some distance from here to Jinzhou City. Oh, and here's some money. This should be enough for you to reach
Onto the Lanayru region, we'll start with the 4 islands on the far eastern side. They are Tingle Island, Ankle Island, Knuckle Island, and Dabdi Island. All of these are named after the 4 Tingle brothers seen throughout the series: Tingle, Ankle, Knuckle, and David Jr. Tingle was first seen in Majora's Mask, and the rest were first seen in the Wind Waker.
It was nothing.
Moving on is a lot of Zora-inspired names. Bruto Lake, Mountain, and Precipice are all named after Bruto from Ocarina of Time. And we see her father getting recognition.
Why does my mouse insist on being the hand
King
thingy?
Zora into 116, as confirmed by the Hyrule Historia on page 89. Jabu Ridge is named after Lord Jabu Jabu, the guardian of Zora, also seen in Ocarina of Time. Inogo Bridge is named after the Indigogos, a Zora band seen in Majora's Mask, with the vocalist being Lulu, who is the inspiration for Lulu Lake, and the manager Toto, who is the inspiration.
This is unsurprising.
Last Toto member to get a reference is Mikau. Mikau Lake is named after. Also from Majora's Mask is Tattle, Link's companion throughout the game, who has Telta Lake named after her. The last of Link's companions to get a reference would be Ezlo from the Cat, who has Zelda named after her. From Twilight Princess is Brutella, with Brutala Dam and Brutala River named after her. We also see her son, Prince Rallis, get a reference in Rallis Port. 2 more Zora are Orin, a sage from the Link Between Worlds, and Laruto, the original Earth sage from the Wind Waker, with Orin Bridge and Ludo's Crossing named after them. Revonat Bridge is the final Clash Boss reference, as it's a callback to Revonat from The Adventure of Link. Link's uncle Smith from the Mitch Cat gets a reference in the Dim's Bridge, as it is simply his name shuffled. Zora's River is a recurring location first seen in Ocarina of Time that is known for supplying water to the entirety of Hyrule. The islands within Lanayru wetlands hold a lot of references to Phantom Hourglass, such as Linebeck Island, named after Linebeck, Zhao's Island, named after Zhao's, Bannon Island, Mermaid Island, and Melita Island, also all originate from Phantom Hourglass. As for the rest of the islands, Millennium Island is named after the word Millennium, West Island is named after the word West, and Kofunga Island and Kofunga Village Ruins are named after Kofunga Swamp from Link's Awakening. We also see a fair number of locations referencing both the Oracle games. From Seasons, we see Lurdrum Headland named after Holodrum, the main setting of the game, with Lauren Lagoon named after Lauren Village, the main town of the game. There's also Samasa Plain and Spool Blight, referencing Samasa Desert and Spool Swamp respectively. The last location for Seasons is Time Point, named after Time Ruins, a late game world location housed in the 6th dungeon. We see 2 references to ages, first one being Brenna Plain, named after Labrina, the main setting of the game. The second being Talus Plateau, named after Talus Lake and Talus Peaks. These locations are also the inspiration behind the name of the Talus Boss. Krennel Peak is named after Mount Krennel, and Vale Falls are named after Vale Falls, both locations from the Minish Cap. 2 more Link's Awakening locations are Tabal Wasteland and Telltale Peaks, inspiring Tabal Woods and Telltale Peak. Shadowback Point hints towards the dangers of this location, and Winter Island is simply named after the season Winter. Bone Pond could be a portmanteau of Bone and Dampe, a character first seen in Ocarina of Time, who is found working in the graveyard. The last region we have is Tabantha, finishing off the bird theming. Lake Totori is named after the Rito race, and Kulami Bridge named after Komali, a Rito scene in the Wind Waker. We also have Piper Ridge, named after Piper, a character from Skyward Sword, who is named after the bird Sandpiper. As for real-world birds, there's Dronok's Pass, with Dronok being an anagram of Condor, Narrow Hill being named after herons, Rain Highland being named after cranes, Strop Lake being named after storks, Warbler's Nest being named after warblers, and finally Pass Hill named after the songbird suborder Panseri. Next, Dragonbone Mire is named after Ganondorf's surname, Dragmire. Kuho Mountain could also be named after another bird, the Kuho, a fictional chicken-like creature seen throughout the series, originating in A Link to the Past. These have been all the references and explanations for the locations in Breath of the Wild that I can find Demon Meetings in. Here's a list of the remaining locations I couldn't find anything for. This could be because they are original and not based on content from previous Zelda games or real-world inspirations. If any of
There really isn't much punishment for
or if I got something
getting spiked,
I
so
can find, I would appreciate you letting me know. At the end of the day, I did this to get the information out there for anyone curious like I was when I started this project, and if more references are discovered or I need to correct any errors I made, I will update this. But what did we learn from this? Looking at everything, we see a lot of references to the popular entries, the ones you'd expect, such as Ocarina of Time, The Wind Waker, and
Reminded me of Honkai.
but we also see a lot of callbacks to some more interesting entries.
Honkai
There was a
Impact.
fair number of Link's Awakening references, more than most of the other games, and being the most referenced 2D game, possibly hinting towards the remake that came out in 2019. The only games with more references are The Wind Waker, Skyward Sword, and Ocarina of Time. Wind Waker is most likely due to the returning Korok and Rito Rexes, causing references in their respective areas to not have many options. Skyward Sword is most likely referenced a lot due to it being the previous 3D Zelda game released. Ocarina of Time is the most referenced, as it is the highest rated Zelda game, as well as it introducing a lot of new races to the series, such as the Kikiri, Gorons, and the modern iteration of the Zora. On the opposite end of things, both Four Swords and Four Swords Adventures had zero references, as neither of them had many original characters or locations. Even the less played Zelda games got some references. The DS games Fan of Hourglass and Spirit Tracks had 75 references. Zelda 2 has references to 4 of the bosses, and Triforce Heroes has one sole reference to King Tuft. Here is the list of how many references each game has, ordered from
What the fuck?
It is hard to get the exact numbers due to some
Alright, I guess that's a thing.
I already mentioned how the term Hylia was first mentioned in A Link to the Past, but the lake seen in Zelda 1 was called Lake Hylia in the Zelda Encyclopedia. In universe, these are all likely named after the goddess Hylia, so all names including Hylia got marked down as referencing Skyward Sword. On top of this, we have the Sages and Mida from Ocarina of Time, who got their names from the towns in Adventure of Link, but as the Divine Beasts are based on the Sages, it makes more sense for the Sages to throw over the towns. Again, in the universe, the towns are most likely named after the Sages. Nintendo's grabbed references from all over the series, and despite the change in form to other series towards, they still love the
Is
series.
that a car?
Whatever direction they are heading, I can trust they know what they're doing and they care about the Zelda. Both old and new. Thank you for your time, and I hope you learned something.
One with the sound.
Administering first aid.
Embracing acceptable damage. Swift and resolute.
Conception.
Embracing change.
Conception.
The thorns are blocking our path. Weird. We'll have to clear them before we can reach the beacon. Oh, please be careful. They look sharp. Maybe we can find something nearby to help us deal with them. Master Tianxing, are you alright? This is my first time on a battlefield. It feels so different here.
I know another shipment of supplies has just arrived. I've confirmed it, but it's not nearly enough.
But the approval process...
Tell them it's an emergency. We are I'll talk to them if you can't make them. Move! What is it? You new here? Are you backups too? Wait, you don't look like one of us.
I am Yang Yang, an outrider of the Midnight Rangers, and they are...
Excuse me, one moment, please. Careful! This chest holds vital... An outrider.
Like, throwing away your bike.
Have to answer. Yes?
My recon isn't in range, but...
I'll be there immediately.
Okay. Yeah, so I have this bike in range, this bike in range, I have this infantry in range. I can interrupt this capture, bring this recon up and attack this, and then it'll be in range to protect this city. So I'm not going to let him get this city, and even if he did get it, there's not very much backup coming, especially considering this recon is here, and he still hasn't built anything to answer it yet. It's still just a bunch of bikes. And you can shoot a recon with a bunch of bikes all you want, but it's not going to do that much. And with all my cities that I own around here, I can just put it on a city, heal up what little damage they do, and then go back and start shooting again. So really what you want to do in this situation, you see a recon coming in during capture phase, all you have is bikes. You need something to answer it, whether a recon of your own or preferably a tank. Because if you build a tank to answer my recon, that forces me to build a tank of my own, or possibly a battlecopter. In this case, I built it just because I had the funds.
Like I said,
and,
it's not a big deal.
There wasn't much to answer it, but let's keep going here. The issue I'm seeing here is that there's just this tank and this anti-tank. Let's see what my opponent builds this turn. I'm curious to see. Another anti-tank. Very interesting decision. Now, it makes sense, okay? Once again, it is called an anti-tank, and look at all these tanks that I have. I have a huge tank advantage coming in right now. But these are going to take forever to get here. By the time they can back up the front line, I'm going to have all kinds of bikes that can shoot on these, because these things are actually pretty weak to infantry and bike units in general. Like, they don't do a lot, 35, but if you can gang up on an anti-tank with them, they're extremely cost-effective. As an anti-tank costs 11,000, a bike costs 2,500. It's just a very cost-effective trade. And I have a lot of those. And by the way, tanks can gang up on anti-tanks. They'll take a lot in retaliation, but the amount that they do back is, assuming you can gang up on them safely, you can deal with them with tanks. It's actually not too bad. Now you see here I interrupted
When
this
they
path,
unlock
and
daily
I fully
commissions.
intend to finish interrupting
Have
it,
you confirmed
this
the
recon next
What?
turn.
You
And I was
deliver
able
this
to
list
easily
to
clear through my
Asher?
opponent's wall on the
You're
northern
not
front, and now I'm
Eva.
taking
Where is she?
this city,
What do you
which,
need?
for all intents and purposes, should have belonged to my opponent from the get-go. But now it's a neutral city on my opponent's side, more or less, and I'm taking it. So now,
Master Tianxin,
instead of
have
retreating
you
with
found
this
the
calder
person you're
tank,
looking
he
for?
chooses to fire on my
Yes,
honey
I
tank,
found Juyan. We will return
which
to the city
just
with the
basically
logistics team.
guarantees that he's
I
now
will
about
go
to
find
lose
Mr.
his
Zhang Ye to
seal.
let him know he is safe.
As for other seals, he doesn't have seal powers to worry about. Sorry. So you'll see here, also down here he has a bit of an advantage with these bikes. I believe I'm going to take this bike and send it down to
Juyan is a man
reinforce.
full of courage. Influenced by
Meanwhile,
his
up on the
veteran
northern
grandpa's
front,
tales,
there
he
is
longs
a
to
pretty
join the
decent
military.
battle
The
going
journey
on.
with you has exposed me
He
to
actually
immense
built a flare
suffering,
to
but
deal
the
with
battles on the
my
front line must
recon
be
earlier.
even more brutal than what
But
I've witnessed.
I answered that
Countless
immediately
lives have been
by building a
lost in
tank.
this
Like,
war.
okay, recon can't really deal with a flare that well. He built a second flare, but I've already built a tank. So we'll see how well that works
Us
out.
running into Master
So I send my
Tianxin was
recon
a
down.
one-off
This Calder
incident.
tank
Have
is
you
going
thought
to
of
die
something, Rover?
for sure.
I think so.
There it
Why
goes.
the magistrate wants to tell us about.
And meanwhile, I'm
We
going to
haven't
be
reached the
going
front
around
lines yet.
getting a bunch of damage. I'm already at 33. My CO zone is at 4, which is massive. At this point, I'm almost guaranteed. First of all, I've won this front completely, okay? Let's stop and take a look for a second. 1 HP infantry, 9 HP infantry, full HP bike, full HP infantry. And down here, these two foot soldier units are being threatened by a recon. They can't do anything against that. Up here, there are 4 tanks, an artillery, a 5th tank coming in, a battlecopter. Like, there's nowhere these infantry can possibly go. They are going to die. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And meanwhile, these anti-tanks, they're still just plodding their way along down to the front lines, moseying down like grit, taking their sweet old time. Now, they're good against tanks. Once they get here, they're going to be a bit of an issue. But as it stands now, this whole front, like, I've won it. It's completely mine. I can start going after cities. I can take this city and that city. I can go after this city. And it's just not a very good position for my opponent whatsoever. Now, up here it's looking a little better with all these bikes incoming, but I have a tank incoming against my opponent's flares. I saw this battlecopter expecting it to come over to the northern flank here, and so I built an anti-air right here. See where my opponent ended up sending that. Because I didn't want this. That was a good counter to my tank, so it kind of forced me to build an anti-air. However, it goes south.
Now, my opponent could still choose to send it to the east from here, to sort of support up here. And finally, here comes another goal. But not before the third anti-tank, ladies and gentlemen. There are now 3 anti-tanks on the field, which my opponent then needs to respond to a tank advantage that I have on one of the fronts. I now have 5 tanks and 1 medium tank that I built last turn. Anti-tanks, not necessarily going to beat that, because of my extra, like, I have this artillery, I have the second artillery backing me up, I have bikes that I can use. Now here, finally something comes in. Anti-tanks, by the way, for those of you who don't know, are surprisingly pretty good against battlecopters. They do 45, and battlecopters only 20 damage back, which is pitiful. Like, it's not called an anti-copter, okay? Why does it do so little? Even tanks do more. It's called an anti-tank, and it does 35, whereas the copter only does 20. And actually, it does a ton more damage to the tank, so fair enough. But still, it's a bad trade even for a battlecopter. Even a duster, which a duster you might think is pretty good since the bikes, the infantry, they use the machine guns, and they're really good against it. But the duster with the same machine gun, only 5%. Who knows? The answer was logic. Alright, so here comes the first flare. I'm actually kind of in danger up here. Kind of. I have a tank that can just go up there and have a field day. At least until this tank gets here, but that's going to take a couple of turns to get there. And in the meantime, I'm just throwing everything into the bottom flank here. Because I'm like, okay, well, I can easily win this front. I'll just send my skeleton crew to the weak side over here. I'll build a second tank to deal with this tank just in case.
You just stood there and gazed into the distance. It felt
and
as
I'll
if I was
reinforce
seeing
maybe
through
with
the
some
eyes
more
of a
bikes so I
tacit
can
discord.
capture the properties. I'm probably going to lose some of these properties now,
An imposing warrior
but I'm
wielding
thinking,
power
okay,
of
well,
a
I'll just
team.
send my bikes and
The
stuff,
team
or
room is the
rather my
Midnight
tanks,
Ranger's
sorry,
emblem.
and
Its
my
lines are not far from
recons.
here.
I can just clean up all of those
Doesn't
weak
seem
points my
like a
opponent has around.
coincidence.
Build a third tank,
Your
you know, build
vision.
another battlecopter.
It might be
It'll
what
be
was
fun.
happening on the battle.
But yeah, now I
itself
am
as it
losing
streams to
some
the
of these
north of
properties up here, as you can see. I can't interrupt all of these.
Something on that battlefield, but I didn't
But
hear anything.
that's fine. I'm just going to let my opponent do that for now, because I expect I'll be able to get those back. In come the anti-tanks, which I can easily just move out of range of, although they are covering each other. And here comes a Calder anti-tank, decided to load himself into this, which is honestly kind of scary. Like, it's going to be very hard to kill.
Baiju, the leaf showed residual fluctuations of tacit discords.
Yeah, they're kind of hard to counter when they're clumped up like this, but at the same time, once again, remember that there's not much they can do without that direct support from, like, tanks and such. The fourth anti-tank, ladies and gentlemen. The fourth anti-tank. We need more anti-tanks. So here the battlecopter does end up going south. Meanwhile, I sent my anti-air over to the southwestern flank to deal with it. And I also have this battlecopter, so I'm thinking, well, maybe, like, if he wants to attack one of my tanks, then he'll have to deal with, well, my anti-air cannot, well, yeah, it can get down there as long as I move one of my tanks. If it wants to attack one of my tanks, I can shoot it with my anti-air, I can shoot it with my battlecopter, so there's not too much it can do. If it wants to shoot one of these bikes or the recon, then I can shoot it in retaliation with my battlecopter. So yeah, it does force it back. Meanwhile, my opponent continues inching forward with these anti-tanks, but I've got artillery behind that can shoot them cost-effectively. I've got a rocket that can zone them out in turn. I'm building a bunch of bikes, as you can see here, to do a lot of damage. Now, this up here looks pretty bad with all of the enemy units until you realize that they have one tank to my two. Which, by the way, I went and interrupted this cap knowing that it was in range of this tank. But that's why it's important to have tank overlap. So now I can move this tank back, presumably interrupt this cap, or I can try to destroy this and then move it onto the city to heal up, and then this can roll right in and take a nice shot on this tank. And my opponent does not have another tank overlapping his tank to punish that move. His tank is all the way back here. It's like 2 turns away. So yeah, here we go. I do interrupt the cap, and bam! There it is. That's a 3 HP tank. It's not going to be doing too much damage to anything anytime soon. Maybe this recon, you know, good luck with that. And meanwhile, I'm going to be sending a few little bikes up top, so that I can recapture these properties up here once I'm finished cleaning up. Meanwhile, I'm just building up my walls. Want to come at me with 5 anti-tanks? 5 now? And a single regular tank? That's fine. I'll just zone you out with rockets, I'll zone you out with bikes, and we can just sit here all day. And I'll build more rockets, I'll build more bikes. Eventually I'll build a bomber, you know, something like that. Because I do have an income advantage. Let's see here. Right now it is, here it is, 22 for my opponent versus 21 for me. Now that's because my opponent is capturing some of these cities up here. I will shortly be taking these back. This one I'm going to lose, but I've spent so many turns having an advantage. Plus there's also this city that my opponent does not have. And just my positional advantage here compared to, I have 5 anti-tanks, and 2 more that will be here in, what, 3 turns? So, my positional advantage that I've built up over the course of the game thus far outweighs the income advantage that my opponent is going to be allowed for just a few turns here. Although, smartly he does attack my bike down here so that it can't quickly capture this city. But regardless of that, I can just start capping it, and then I'm going to block it off. Oh, and I'm also going to start capping this city, because why not? He'll have to send something to deal with it. And that'll get one of these units off my back over here on the wall. And here comes a bike. Hey, I'm going to shoot your anti-tank with a bike. Here comes another bike with another bike. We're going to shoot your anti-tanks. What are you going to do about it? Let's see. And meanwhile, my tanks, I have 3 tanks up here now, versus my opponent's 1. No anti-tanks to be seen, just 1 tank. And I think 3 tanks will be able to deal with that. You know, that's just a guess, though. Alright, so 5 anti-tanks. What is he gonna build next? A bomber. He's gonna build a bomber, ladies and gentlemen. Now, at this point I only have the 1 anti-air, so against a bomber, okay. I'll have to build another anti-air. Also, I have a battlecopter up on the northern flank now. You need an anti-air, okay? Or a battlecopter of your own up here at the very least. Because this thing is going to be wreaking havoc. Yes, it is. Meanwhile, this, I don't remember if I send... Yeah, okay, I send my tank down. Basically just throwing away that bike because I had a bunch of units that were in range to interrupt that. Like, if you're going to go for a capture, at least make sure you're not just going to die for it. Like, in a way, you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm going to go for this, and then he has to send a unit down here to deal with it. But I have so many units right here that I could have used to deal with it that aren't really doing anything but being a wall, waiting for my rockets to get here so I can zone out your anti-tanks. And as soon as they get here to zone out the anti-tanks, it's over. Like, they'll have to just slowly push back. I can start taking these cities. I already took this city. Let's see, we're even right now. And I expect to be able to start taking some of these cities soon. And I'm also going to expect to take some of these cities back
attacks are usually
from my
seen
opponent.
to belong to a
And
different
now
time.
here we
I
go. The
remember
first
reading
rocket
about
is in
something
range.
like
It can
this.
shoot on the
People have
CO
large-scale
anti-tank,
ancient rituals periodically
which
in their
will force
villages,
my opponent to
driven
move
by
back a
certain
little bit.
beliefs.
But why is there a loading thing on my mouse? Oh, and I decided, you know what? I'll build a bomber too. Those are good against anti-tanks. And then here's an anti-air. I built it up here just in case he sends the bomber up north. But if he doesn't, I'll just send it over the bridge and put it over
Watch
here.
out.
No big deal. Alright, so he does
Something's
get
not
forced to send his anti-tank back. He sends the bomber down.
Brother.
He's realizing that the anti-tanks are not enough. He needs
It
something
seems to only repeat these
to
lines
deal
just
with
to
this
just
big
gods attack
death ball
other
that I
living
built up
beings,
down here.
because they need
And
to
the
feed on
anti-tanks
their
are not going to cut
frequencies,
it, because now there are
Probably
rockets. I'm just
before
going to
turning
slowly
the
inch them
last bits of
forward.
a human's consciousness into
And
such
meanwhile, I'm going to
monotonous
protect
mumbles.
my anti-air so that if he wants to shoot me with the bomber, he's going to have to pay for the privilege. At the cost of 20,000
I'm
being killed by a
sorry.
7,000 unit.
That's beyond my
In terms of cost, that is.
Rover,
Meanwhile, look at all these caps that I'm just going to interrupt.
but it's not.
Like,
Ask the
he's
village is
throwing away
crying.
these units. Look at all these tanks that I have,
Must be still evidence
battlecopters,
we found?
and yet he's still going for these captures. These are all just useless units right now. Like, they're worth nothing. They're not going to capture any properties. Because I have 100,000 units in range to interrupt all of them. They're all just going to die. So, at this point, he really needed to just pull back, wall up, start building some tanks over here. So it's very important to have tank advantage. Tank advantage is very important, as you will see. Now, let's see here. I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm still not quite at full energy. Yeah, I'm at 42 energy right now. Because it's been so stally, there haven't been a bunch of like bikes and stuff for me to take advantage of to try and gain power charge.
It's a group of extremists obsessed
But that's
with
okay.
using humans with tasks.
And here, the bomber just joins my opponent's death ball. It's not much of a death ball because there's only a bunch of indirect units. By the way, second bomber, but by the way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 anti-tanks. You know, that's honestly, at this point, I was a little bit unsure what to do. I had asked in the Discord, so what do you do when somebody spams anti-tanks? And the people in the Discord, it was kind of funny. Some of them were like, what do you mean spamming anti-tanks? Who does that? And I was like, well, I may or may not be fighting someone who's really spamming anti-tanks. And so they were like, well, just build rockets. Build a bunch of bikes, and you can see how many bikes I have. But when they're all clumped together like this, it's like, it's going to be hard to take good trades against these, I think, because they're all clumped together. You know, as soon as you try to gang up on one, because you really have to gang up on these. Like, they have crazy defense. Rockets, like other indirect units, do well. Which, rockets are the only thing I can realistically get in range against all these since they're clumped together. And then bombers, which do 80, which is why I've built 2 of those now.
Yes,
or have I? Here's the 1. No, my opponent built 2, I just built my first one. But, you know, there's no anti-air to be seen. There's one duster that decided to go north, deal with my battlecopter. So, I'm like, you know what, if it goes south, I'll just use all of my anti-air that I have. I built another anti-air. So, you know, I'm gonna be fine. Because as soon as I see, that's the beauty of standard. You can see exactly what your opponent builds, and you say, oh, okay, that's gonna be a nuisance to deal with, so I better build an answer right away, so I can send that up to deal with it. Meanwhile, remember just a couple turns ago how many units were up here? There's just a swarm of bikes. How many bikes are left? There's 2 bikes. So a few more incoming, and meanwhile I have now 4 tanks. One is pretty damaged, but it can deal with bikes just fine. I can rest it on a city. I have 2 anti-air, which were also very indispensable with dealing with bikes. Meanwhile, my battlecopter has also done well. It's at level 2. I do have to get it away from this duster though.
Observe the surroundings
So the duster is a bit of a threat there, but right now,
your true
I mean,
and before that,
how do you think my opponent's going to win this at this point? I just keep zoning him out with my rockets. He has to slowly move back.
Maybe you should be
Remember when he was around here-ish? Now he's been pushed back just a little bit. Here, my rockets are zoning him out. He has to move back, and now he's back here. And this city is pretty much free for the taking.
What is the conclusion you've drawn?
I just need to move up a little further with my rockets. And then this bike can swoop right in, take that city, basically for free. And meanwhile, I'm going to need another anti-air down here. I'm not sure why I don't already have a second anti-air since I saw the second bomber. And also,
the animations literally just skip.
There's another duster coming in.
So there's no need to wait for animations for dialogue to continue. That's hilarious.
Rover.
There wasn't really too much.
I'm eager to hear your version after you've learned more.
Pardon me, there wasn't really too much down here except maybe all these bites that a duster can really deal with. But in any case, we're sending more tanks up to the north because there's a skeleton crew on my opponent's side. Honestly, this is my skeleton crew that I've slowly amassed over the course of the battles against all of the bikes. It's just I haven't been losing units because it's all been bikes. There haven't been any tanks to threaten me. And meanwhile, I continue to be careful. All my units, I have to move that guy out of the way. And now, instead of being here with the anti-tanks, now they're all the way back here. And my opponent gets aggressive. Here come the bombers. And unfortunately for me, my anti-air is not in range, so that was definitely a blunder on my part. I really should have sent more anti-air over there in the first place. You know what a copter has been really useful, by the way, when it's running out of fuel. It's beautiful. I mean, it has the fuel, but it doesn't have any promotions, but, you know, it's been used to zone things out. It's been great. It's been good. At this point, I actually build a rig, because I want to build a temporary airport, because the longer I'm sitting around with all these units just sitting around, they're still using up fuel because air units just be like that. So, I didn't have much else to build. I decided to build a fighter, because, you know, 2 bombers, 2 dusters. My opponent actually does see this and build a fighter in response. One of the first times he built something immediately in response to something that I built, which was a good play on his part. But now
is unlimited, freedom is unlimited, extra love for you, less for me, there'll be less for me.
Kind of a little bit too little too late, and now you can see I'm going in for the big push. Even my medium tank right here is low on fuel. It's got 17 fuel, ladies and gentlemen. This medium tank has been a trooper. Man, just a lot.
People will think I'm referencing Project
Moon.
Moon
Also running low on fuel. It's not often that you see
instead of Millie when I sing that song, won't they?
Ground units like this running low on fuel because they've been doing such an efficient job at walling off and zoning out the opponent. And now
Library of Ruina.
If my opponent wants to shoot any of these, ooh, he opened that up. Now, this did suck. I knew this was going to happen, though.
Well done.
He's going to shoot one of my rockets, but I still have another, and I have 2 anti-airs right here. I have a fighter right here. He sees that
I wasn't paying attention.
I've got to push 2. This is a classic mistake. Do not do this. Like, you feel like you need to do something, like, okay, my opponent's pushing, now it's time for me to push. But in this case, you don't have the units to push. That's why I did my push in the first place. I figured, okay, if I push now, I'm going to come out ahead. And here comes my first CO power! Finally, it took long enough. Unfortunately, I did not get rain. Which, you know, most people would be ecstatic to see this, because I got Sandstorm. That's by far the best weather that Penny can roll. But I'm pretty sad about it, because this series is not called Ruining the Standard Ladder by getting overpowered Sandstorms. This is called Ruining the Standard ranking ladder by
Slowly,
using Penny to get Fog of War. I want to make every match Fog of War, and this is not Fog of War. This is Sandstorm.
But this
But
is
at
not
least
the
I get to say
end of our story.
It's kind of not good
Found
theme
the solitary
by now, but
black
you know, you guys know what I'm
lamb in his
talking
flock,
about. So now,
and
the
offered to
carnage,
grant
baby.
any
Look,
wish
2
it
bombers
desired.
down, 1
In
duster
exchange,
down.
he wanted
I killed at
one
least
of its
1 anti-tank
companions
earlier.
as a
That means he must have
sacrifice.
built at least 6 anti-tanks total. I don't have anything to
The
shoot
black
this fighter, but it
lamb
doesn't matter.
refused, and it was
Because I have
shunned by its
stuff
flock,
blocking
left
off
without
my
shelter
fighter and my
or
bomber.
sustenance.
This thing only has 3 HP. I don't care.
After
I
the
have a
black
bunch of
lamb's
anti-air here.
exile,
Meanwhile,
more
I'm just
lambs
moving up all of
continued to
my
vanish. The
indirects.
shepherd
I
then
left this
blamed
one
the
exposed
black lamb for
partially on
breaking the
purpose.
rules.
Because, I mean, what is he going to do? He has
Without
an
his
infantry that can
wish-granting
shoot him.
power
One
as
infantry.
punishment.
It's not going to do much. And even if it does, look at all these things that I have here. I'll just shoot it down. I don't really care if I leave it a little exposed this turn because there's not much my opponent can do.
The lambs
What is he going to
knew the
do?
risk
These
of
anti-tanks
making
over,
wishes.
they're slow.
They too
They
could
can't do
become
much.
sacrifices
So,
for those of others.
at this point, I've pretty much already won.
They always believed
I'm expecting my
it
opponent to
wouldn't
resign
be
soon.
them.
But have you ever played an opponent
Meanwhile, some
you're
lambs
just
reasoned that since they
sure,
already risked being
fit
sacrificed
as
for
fiddle,
someone else's
definitely
wish,
won,
it was
but
their
they just
only
keep
fair
playing.
to pass on that risk
They play
for
another
a
turn,
chance at fulfilling
then they
their
play
own
another turn.
desires. And so
Those are the people
they
who I call
continued to play the
fight
game.
to the last players. The players who
They
will
all
wait
knew
for
the
you
consequences,
to
but
come in
chose
and
to
actually
remain
cap their
silent.
HQ in the very far corner of the map and never resign.
Fearful,
Because they
yet
played a lot of
greedy,
Advanced Wars on the
they
Game
followed
Boy
the
Advance and
shepherd's
the AI never
orders
resigns.
and made wishes again
That's what I
and
think
again,
this player was on this
until one
game.
day,
Because
a
it
brave
took
black
quite a while
lamb spoke
to finally
shattering
put
the
this up. And to be
flock's
fair,
facade,
look at all the
their
anti-tanks that are still here.
illusion of a
But
peaceful
now
and
I'm starting
happy
to close
life.
those up too. Because I've taken out a couple of them now. I've got a bomber here.
The black lamb got
They can
in
move
their
this out of the
way,
way and shoot it with
and
this
that
3
was
HP
the
fighter.
shepherd's greedy
That'll suck.
pursuit,
Meanwhile,
sparking
this is still
hatred
temporary air
in their
force, so if I want
hearts.
to, I can send it over to get this.
Suddenly, they
And
could
yeah.
no
Oh,
longer
and now,
ignore
as you
the
can see,
blood
I'm starting to
and ashes
recap
of
my
past
properties.
Holy
like I
fucking
said.
shit, this thing is still
littering
going?
Now,
the
let's take a look
ground.
here. I'm a property ahead. You know, that's great. Let's take a look.
Oh my god, finally, it was finally
My
over.
opponent has 19 units at
How do you like my
9,100 value.
story,
Over
Rover?
here,
What really happened
Oh my,
here? I
that's,
suppose the black lamb,
39
the
units
innocent, they had
at-
it coming.
what is that, 200,000?
How do I say this?
Oh my.
I was basically
I
asleep.
think I'm only just a slight bit ahead. So my opponent's reaction to what's going on down here is
Finally, some action.
which, you know, it's not like I have 2 anti-air and a fighter already down here to deal with that or anything. I think it'll work. I don't know if I'll be able to come back from that one. Oh man, look at that. I just, all that damage.
Welcome to the
It
realm
sure would be a shame
of
if I had a
endless
fighter and
chaos.
that bomber right
Now
there.
is your
Certainly.
time to think,
Especially if you
Rover.
pull it off with all those
What is the...
infantry. I
Oh,
mean, there's a fighter
you
here.
found us
But,
already.
let's see, where am I anti-air? Oh, they're both
Shake
down
and
here. That's one.
shiver, blink an eye.
But still,
A flock of
I mean,
lambs comes
fighter
passing
here.
by.
I'll let you.
Fleece
I don't
of
mind.
white,
I'm
black,
back up
and
to
red.
34 energy.
Who's the sweetest
I'm probably
one
going to get
ahead?
skill power
Watch
this
out,
week.
my dear.
Meanwhile, I
Your
continue tapping more of my
pioneers
opponent's
are
properties
lying
up
at
north.
your
It's just
feet. Don't look
sending
back.
everything down
Join them
south
on this run.
and letting me have.
Don't
There's
rush.
nothing up here. I'm
One
sending units
slip
deeper
and you'll
than.
shatter to pieces.
If only I had more bikes, which, I mean, I finally built a bunch more. Because I need to tap these properties. Finally, I start tapping this property right here. Is there no longer any anti-tanks in range to zone it out? I put this guy in range of the anti-tank. Who cares? This rocket is
Such
zoning it out.
brutality.
Wants to shoot my tank, I'll just
Can't
shoot it
you
back
see?
with my rocket.
We are kindred
Just make
spirits
a bunch of
after all.
difference. And I start
Soon
tapping
enough, we
this
won't be, because you will be dead, and I will be not.
Tell
I'm gonna
me,
do.
do you want to be the rule-setting
So,
shepherd
this
or
continues
the
on breaking
rule-breaking
terms.
black lamb?
I want to be the guy that doesn't have to fucking waste my time talking to people playing fucking philosophy on me. I've already had enough of this from Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. Well, he can parry.
Reclaim the trust of its herd. Eventually, there will be no left to be victims or oppressors.
Let's see what Mother can get next.
Do you think I fucking give a shit?
Coming in hot. Ally of justice. Embracing
I
change.
spent a long time practicing those secrets in preparation for this video, guys. I went to karaoke and I was practicing Sandstorm. You know, I was singing it in the shower, practicing those lyrics that you all probably. This bomber is at 1 HP, 9 kill health. It's got 24 people and 2 shots left.
Swift and resolute.
Oh my gosh! Beautiful cost-effective bomber right here. Beautiful cost-effective bomber. Same with this. It's at level 2, it's got 2 shots left, it's got 24 fuel. So many of my units have just had insane cost-effectiveness. I've shot down 3 bombers now, and it's just...
Haven't you ever considered some talented people don't care about changing the world?
Oh, now he's leaving. Alright, saw him on camera for a sec there.
Yeah.
Everyone say hi to Sir Archibald.
I shattered Scar's illusion. I should have injured him.
He's having trouble getting out.
Oh, should I thank you for showing me mercy?
After I finish the
Stay
video.
away from her.
Okay, don't target the cat. The cat is in the closet.
What you should do is get out of our sight.
Alright, so you can see how far back I pushed my opponent. I'm just taking all of the cities. It's over now.
Is everyone in your group possessing a scar or something?
Didn't you promise?
With one condition.
No.
I do hope
Don't
don't let your improvisation trouble her.
Look at you,
Something
no
different,
worries.
but
Rover, it seems
You know.
don't forget my
why not? I'm
let me know what
surprised
you
you can afford a
choose.
bomber
An
on
unexpected
every turn at
gift,
this point.
an honest and open exchange, or a
I
highly
shoot the
risky
bomber.
gamble.
That is a veteran bomber.
You know, what we had was far
We'll
from a
meet
fair
again.
exchange either.
In the not
It was
too
clearly
distant
one-sided.
future.
So
They're
that
gone.
level.
Should we go after them?
Let them be.
Or so. It's great.
Oh,
They're
the
pictures
Scar's
of him
resonant
Just bitches and whores. Also, there was a red spider lily on the lady's chest.
advertising
Wacky.
Trapped me in
because it's
confinement.
not like
And I
something I
bet it took
consider
me
part of
some
the trail.
time to break
So
that
yeah, at this
barrier.
point, like, I'm almost going to get to. Oh, by the way, I have 60 energy again.
Why
So,
are you here,
next turn,
little one?
I can use my power again.
I've never
And
seen
we'll see
any
what weapon I
tacit
get.
discord display such vivid emotions. The brother had
So,
mentioned.
you know, still playing.
Yes,
Still
that is
playing.
a possibility. Let's talk
Gotta
about it
hand to
later.
him. He's tenacious, this paladin.
It seems all the tragedies in Tea Tree Village will link to that
So
ritual.
let's see what weather we get next turn. What could it be?
Making up stories based on
Come on,
real
use
life
power.
support is we
I'm
cannot
just
take
busy
his
going,
words for
okay, I'm finally
granted.
gonna kill all these
No.
anti-tanks, they're gone. Good, and we're gonna cap all the properties with rock and roll. Oh,
What's
beautiful.
the matter?
Cap all the properties, or reduce the CL power. Buster.
Two distinct frequencies of tacit
What do we
discords.
get?
I see.
Maybe I'm gonna hold on to
I
it
can
for turn
feel
to
it
wait
in the
for
streams.
the sandstorm to
Over
subside
there.
or something. I don't know why I
Only
did that. I'm expecting my
in
opponent
the
to
south.
sign at any instant.
My parentheses.
Come on, use it. Yes, there it is. Finally the rain! It ruined the standard ladder.
They are unharmed. Please rest assured.
Now, the
As you
reason the fog
anticipated,
doesn't
Scar
appear
did
to
not
show
try
up
to kill them.
actually here, the
Is
moment I
everything
activated
alright
that,
on your
the
end?
fog activated
Please
for
be
my
sure to
opponent.
stay safe, my
It's just that
lady.
because of the fog mechanics of this game,
Rover,
every tile that
do you
you
still have
have
the plaque we found?
vision on at the start,
Rover, do you still have the plaque we found
or it's like
earlier?
when you move
The
from
one
recon
broken in
to
half.
to a sweep,
Yes,
and then
as I thought.
move past, say,
I
this
just
tile right
felt
here,
a similar
this city.
vibration from that
Start here
direction.
and you move up there, you'll get vision on this.
Please follow me.
Hey, Reggie, let's go outside.
Are these daily commissions?
But But yeah, because I have full vision on
It's the battle pass, god damn it.
Then as soon as the fog rolls in, I just keep that vision, because it's like I did a recon sweep on the entire map, if that makes sense. But from my opponent's perspective, see, he gets the fog right away. It's just that I can see it. Because I'm not affected by it. Well, the fog does roll.
Their wards are pretty much the exact same as in Genshin.
Doesn't take effect until next turn, because I already had vision on it. Hopefully that makes sense, but that's how it works. The turn
but they have rewards for overflow.
She just gets to see everything. So yeah,
and it goes all the way to 60.
Buildings went dark for a second there. And instead of resigning, ran out of time, which that's
whatever. That's close enough to a daily commission system.
It's been my very first standard ranked game, attempting to ruin the entire thing by turning it into a Fog of War game. Okay. So, very interesting first game. It's a lot of fun to play, actually. Those, that big clump of anti-tanks was very annoying to deal with. It did force me to build, like, a bunch of rockets and, bombers and stuff, mostly just to zone them out, because I would get in range and then they get pushed back and back and back, but then eventually it's just like, alright, I'm gonna just cap all your properties that you left exposed, because...
Guess I'll unlock those tomorrow.
All the anti-tanks back there.